Hi guys, it's Escalax, and today I'm going to be doing a video on PlanetSide 2. And this is my favorite PC game of the PC games I have, which aren't a whole heck of a lot, but anyway, it's still my favorite PC game, and it's free to play, so I mean, why not play it? But anyway, I just kind of want to talk about I think things that you should do when you kind of get started playing PlanetSide 2. And the reason why I decided to make this video was because I went to my cousin's house this past weekend, and I kind of convinced him to download PlanetSide 2 on the PlayStation 4, and he didn't really know exactly what it was he was doing, so I just kind of wanted to make a video to try and help people get into PlanetSide 2 if they're new to PlanetSide 2, and help them make their progress a little bit easier into the game, transition into the game a little bit easier, because it is a big game. It is an MMO FPS, which is a massively multiplayer online first-person shooter. So just think of, I guess, like Battlefield, but on a bigger scale. That's not quite the perfect analogy, but it is a good analogy to use, I suppose, in this sense. And just to make sure you guys know I'm legit, I have this Araxium weapon here with this Araxium banner, which is quite difficult to get, with 585 directive points, which isn't a whole lot, but it is a good amount. And yeah, so I'll just get right into it then, into the game. Things you should do when you start playing, things you should invest your certification points into. So here's the map, and I guess we'll just kind of jump into combat here. I was going to use the spawned scythe, but you know, I kind of figure it's not very conducive for me to kind of use something which a new player might not immediately have access to. So when you first start playing PlanetSide 2, you'll be able to choose from the three factions, which are the Terran Republic, the Vanu Sovereignty, which I'm playing as now, and the NC, which is the New Conglomerate. I recommend you play as the Vanu Sovereignty first, just because, here's my Araxium weapon by the way, just because the Vanu Sovereignty do not have bullet drop on their weapons, so it's very easy to kind of transition into the Vanu Sovereignty if you're first trying to get used to PlanetSide 2. I'm trying to remember which weapon it is that a new player would start out with. I know it's one of the carbines. I don't know if it's the Solstice. I think it's the Solstice BE3. Yeah, I think this is it. I'm going to change the scope real quick to something a little bit more manageable to that. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, I just kind of want to talk about, you know, things that you should do when you first start playing PlanetSide 2, and things you should invest your certification points in. I think the first thing that's really important for you as a new player is to kind of get your bearings into the game and kind of figure out exactly what it is you're doing when you first start playing PlanetSide 2, because there's a lot of things that will be going on when you first start playing PlanetSide 2, and it's going to be rather hectic, in all honesty. And that's just, you know, part of what this game is. It's just chaos, and you know, it's kind of a mess, really, if you think about it. But it's a really fun game when you get into it. So I think the first thing you need to really do is, as a new player, is make sure you get your bearings, you know what you're doing, but survive as well, because it's not fun if you're playing a new game and you're just dying all the time. So obviously you want to do something which benefits you, but you also need to do something which you feel comfortable with and you enjoy doing. So in order to survive more with any class, I recommend you get nanite armor, nanoweave armor first. And nanoweave armor, what it will do is it will decrease the amount of damage small projectiles like bullets kind of do to you. So if you have nanoweave armor equipped, you'll take less damage, is pretty much what it's supposed to do. Now you can also get the advanced shield capacity, which will increase how much shields you have, and that's good as well. But I don't think it's as handy as the nanoweave armor. The nanoweave armor I think is a must-have if you're a new player to the game. Now that's my subjective opinion. If you're playing as any class, that's my general rule of thumb. However, if you are playing a light assault, I recommend you don't necessarily jump towards nanoweave armor immediately. I actually recommend you get the jump packs. Some people recommend the drifter jets. I don't like the drifter jets too much, just because there's not too terribly much you could do with them. In my opinion, there's not as much utility with the drifter jets as you have with the jump jets. The jump jets are more verticality, as the drifter jets are more horizontal kind of movement. So yeah, and then the Icarus jets, I wouldn't even recommend, you know, bothering with them. Just kind of invest into jump jets if you are playing as a light assault. So yeah, and we're just kind of in a biolab right now, just kind of playing around, not really doing too much really, because it's a biolab fight, unfortunately, so there's not a whole heck of a lot going on. I'm trying to fight off the temptation to get into a scythe, but yeah, so I definitely, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'm trying to fight off the temptation, but I definitely recommend you do that, just because it's like, you get the nanoweave armor just because it helps your survivability a lot more. You'll be able to play the game. I think you'll be able to enjoy it more as a new player. And I spawned in this exact same place, which is one of the main problems with this game. Is this game has horrible, absolutely horrible instant action capabilities. I think the instant action in this game isn't very good because it doesn't. It's not like the instant action of old where you would just kind of drop in somewhere using a. Where you could just kind of like drop in anywhere anymore, which I think is very unfortunate because it's just not as fun, you know. It's just like, okay, you know, you kind of get into the game and, you know, there's not really much you do. Oh gosh. This is a Vanguard, by the way, guys, just, you know, in case you guys didn't know, it's a Vanguard. It's probably going to kill me, but he doesn't look like he knows what he's doing, so I guess I'll be able to take him out really easily. But there's many of them though, so we'll see. And yeah, I'm just in a lightning right now, which is something which is fairly standard if you're a new player. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to take him out. Ah, man, this really blows. Because, yeah, I'm going to have to get out of here. There's too much damage on me. So, unless I repair it, which I can. But yeah, so, I mean, I do have my complaints with this game. This game isn't entirely perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And yeah, I mean, just try and get your bearings, try and figure out what you're doing in this game, try and survive. If you have friends, I definitely recommend you play it with them, because it'll be funner with friends, obviously, rather than playing, you know, by yourself. There's one behind me, I think. Yeah, there is. I'm pretty much done right now. But yeah, the gun I'm using right now is the standard weapon that you'll have access to as a Vanu Sovereignty player. In the beginning of the game, it's a carbine. Obviously, if you're playing as a light assault or if you're playing as an engineer, I'm playing as an engineer right now. Engineers and light assaults both share carbines. And so yeah, what else should you invest into other than nanoweave armor? Optics on your weapons are usually pretty good as well. Optics are really nice, so just picking the right optic that you want to use is good for any weapon you have. I don't necessarily recommend investing into vehicles right away, just because they're kind of difficult to get the hang of, and you'll probably need to be in large groups of people in order to get the full utility out of them. Scythes, if you're a new player, I don't necessarily recommend getting into scythes right away, just because when you use a scythe, there's a lot of really good pilots out there, very good pilots, better than me. Obviously, I'm not too terribly great, but there's a lot of really good pilots that will be able to take you out quickly. If you're using a scythe, and if you're using a scythe right away in the beginning of the game, the only thing you're going to have access to is the base default laser cannon. You're not going to have dual photon pods. You're only really going to have the external fuel tanks, and that's not really going to help you out too much. And all the really cool things of the ESFs, which are the Empire-specific fighters, aren't going to be available to you for a while. So the dual photon pods, if you're VS, you'll have to spend like 1,000 certification points, which isn't too terribly hard to get if you're an advanced player, but if you're a new player, that's going to be a huge investment that you really don't want to be investing into. So I don't necessarily recommend doing that. So again, stay away from things like the ESFs, the Mag Riders, or the Lightnings, so the main battle tanks for the factions, which are the Mag Rider for the Vanu Sovereignty, the Prowler for the TR, or the Vanguard for the NC, are good, but again, you're going to really need to get the full utility out of them, you're going to need to be in groups, unless you're using a Mag Rider. The Mag Rider plays differently, and I'll talk about that in a later video, but the Mag Rider plays very weird, differently to all the other Empire-specific main battle tanks. And the Lightning's just really good all around. It's my favorite vehicle in the game. It's super fun to use, super easy to use. It's super cheap in terms of these nanites down here, which you use to purchase things. So yeah, conserve your certification points as much as you can. They're really helpful to, you know, obviously you're going to be using them to buy things, but conserve them as much as you can. Don't spend them on vehicles, please. If you're a new player, definitely play Vanu Sovereignty, again, just because they don't have bullet drop. They don't have bullet drop, which makes it, I think, in my opinion, easier to play as Vanu Sovereignty if you are a new player. That's an overgeneralization about the Vanu Sovereignty and the playstyle of the Vanu Sovereignty, but they do not have bullet drops. So it's a little bit easier to get your hands and your head kind of like wrapped around the whole idea and concept of what it is to be a PlanetSide 2 player. And yeah, and then that's pretty much it. So if you're playing as a light assault, definitely go nanoweave armor, but also go drifter jets. I mean jump jets, not drifter jets, jump jets. And if you're playing as any other class, just definitely get nanoweave armor. It will definitely help you out a lot. And so that's it for this video. I'm going to do another video here in a little bit, and it's going to go a little bit more in depth about the gameplay of the game. But yeah, so thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in a bit. So see ya.